During the same period, a friend on Facebook sent me a private message telling me he was living in Lilljansberget. I'd just seen him there, but I wasn't sure he lived there. I'd been friends with him on Facebook since the fall of 2010. I met him the first time physically the last summer. He was a notorious criminal and about 10 years older than me, had been to prison for years. Due to his old age and criminal background, I asked him often about his life and what it was like being racialized and/or criminal in Umeå back in the 90s and early 00s, which I obviously didn't get to experience back in those days. He also wasn't registered to his apartment at the time. He was borrowing it from someone else. He moved elsewhere in eastern Umeå during the latter half of 2012. We kept of course seeing each other now and then, usually at random. He invited me into his apartment a few times, and also came over to my place a few times. I had one memorable weekend night at his place during the winter. He was throwing a party, where there were plenty of guests, most of which I knew already. I got there sometime between 7 to 9 p.m. First there were a bunch of girls. Most of them left after about an hour or so, and then about 30 minutes later or so, a bunch of gangsters showed up, most of which I knew from Krugen back in 2009. I ended up on a photo with them which got uploaded on Facebook later. During the party, I was given 2 shots of vodka, drinking both, the second about 15 minutes after the first one. Then I drank from a third glass all by myself at random. Then I got real drunk. I couldn't walk straight nor could I leave the apartment. But I could control my words, thoughts and actions, even better now since I had to concentrate not to make a detrimental mistake, obviously detrimental in this environment. I dribbled several rap songs just to see if I could remember the lyrics, which I did real good actually. I went home at about 5 a.m., and even though I was still clearly intoxicated, I could walk straight and leave the place. Then throughout the next day, I had a quote, hangover, if I ain't wrong now. I was sober enough to walk straight and remember everything from last night clearly. I even took the bike downtown successfully. But I felt a huge, cold cloud in my head, which disappeared after about 1 or 2 days. Those of you who are familiar with alcohol probably know what I'm talking about. As for me, I ain't that experienced with it. I'd never been this drunk before, and neither have I ever been this drunk since then. I've also gotten invited to people's residences in the hood a number of times, at random, since I moved out of my parents' house, usually during the summers. Nice and memorable as all this looks to be, not the least for me then, there was a dark side to all of this. And no, it wasn't just a crime in itself, with all that it brings. It was that one of the girls who bullied me at Brentis, and after that was a close friend of my neighbor, and she was at his house the first time I was with him, and then at this party. Of course, I didn't want to have any problem with her in this case. Better yet, it never got any loud. We talked a little, but hardly anything about the beef. But as you can probably understand now, Brentis's footprints wasn't going to let go of me very soon. And now that I had a neighbor who was a notorious criminal, and had been at my house and vice versa, I had to play low-key. I never got threatened. I never had to, because these people shine with their presence. You just know immediately what's up. And no, I never got involved in anything criminal. Better yet, I didn't want to get involved in it, as a crime victim so to speak, much less as a witness. You can try to imagine that, especially those of you who've also been there.